When I booked my vacation rental, I never thought I'd end up in a spine-chilling situation. It was a cozy cabin, perfect for a weekend getaway. Everything was quiet and peaceful until that night. I was watching TV when a knock echoed through the cabin. I froze, my heart pounding in my ears. Cautiously, I crept to the door and peeked through the peephole. It was almost midnight. A thin man stood outside, dressed in a faded blue uniform. He had sunken eyes that sent shivers down my back. He didn't say anything, just stared at me with a disturbing intensity. "Who are you?" My voice cracked a little. He blinked slowly. "I'm the handyman." The handyman? I was confused. I didn't call for a handyman. A flicker of something sinister crossed his face. "I was just checking if everything is okay." I shook my head. "No, everything's fine. You can go." He hesitated, his gaze lingering on me. Then he turned and slowly shuffled away. I watched him go, a sense of unease growing in me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I sat back on the couch, but I couldn't relax. I kept glancing at the door, half expecting to see that man lurking outside. Hours later, as I drifted off to sleep, I heard a creak. I bolted upright, my eyes scanning the darkness. The cabin was deathly still. I convinced myself it was just my imagination and tried to calm down. But then I heard it again. A soft click from the bedroom. I crept toward the door, my body trembling. Slowly, I pushed it open. There, in the dim moonlight, stood that man from earlier. He was leaning over my suitcase, his fingers sifting through my clothes. I gasped, and he turned, a cold smile on his face. I stumbled backward, my legs giving way. He lunged at me, but I dodged his grasp and ran for the door. My heart raced as I fumbled for the lock, desperate to escape. I heard him pounding behind me, his breath ragged. With a final shove, I burst through the door and stumbled outside. The cold night air hit my skin as I ran through the woods, not daring to look back. I didn't stop until I reached the main road, where I flagged down a car and told them about the horrifying ordeal I had just endured. In the end, the man was caught and the vacation rental was shut down. But the memory of that night still haunts me. It was a vacation that turned into a terrifying nightmare, one that I will never forget. I was so ecstatic to finally have a vacation. I had been looking forward to it for what felt like an eternity. After graduating and finally securing a job, I was more than ready for some time off to relax. I booked a trip to the beach and planned to spend my days reading, swimming, and soaking up the sun. On the day of my departure, I packed my car with beach essentials, snacks, and plenty of sunscreen. The drive was long, but I finally made it to my destination, a secluded beach with white sands and turquoise waters. It was perfect. I set up my camp on a small patch of sand and spent the rest of the day basking in the sun. After a while, I decided to go swimming. I jumped into the water and swam out to a buoy. I floated lazily for a while, letting the waves rock me back and forth. Suddenly, I felt something brush against my leg. I looked down and saw nothing. It must have been seaweed, I thought. But then it happened again. This time it was stronger. I looked around, but I couldn't see anything. Fear snaked its way through me as I realized that something was wrong. I swam back to shore and climbed out of the water. I grabbed my towel and wrapped it around me, scanning the area around me, but I couldn't see anything or anyone. Just when I was about to relax, I heard a noise. It was a soft noise, like someone shuffling their feet in the sand. I turned towards the noise and saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was tall and thin, dressed in all black. Its face was obscured by a black ski mask, and it held a long, sharp object in its hand. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at the figure. I couldn't move. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. All I could do was watch as the figure slowly advanced towards me. Time seemed to slow down as the figure got closer and closer. I could see the sharp object in its hand more clearly now. It was a knife. I knew I had to run. I turned and ran as fast as I could, my bare feet pounding on the sand. I could hear the figure chasing after me, its footsteps like thunder in my ears. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. I collapsed on the sand and watched as the figure approached. Its face was still hidden by the ski mask, but I could see its eyes. They were dark and empty, like the eyes of a predator. The figure stopped in front of me and raised the knife. I closed my eyes, waiting for the inevitable. But then the figure stopped. I heard it sniff the air, and then it turned and ran away towards the water. I lay there on the sand, panting heavily. I couldn't believe I had just escaped death. After a few minutes, I got up and ran back to my campsite. I packed up my belongings and left the beach. I drove home in a daze, my mind still reeling from what had happened. I never went back to that beach. But I will never forget the terrifying encounter I had with the man in the ski mask. So, this happened a couple of years ago. I was working at this call center, the kind where you get bombarded with calls from people upset about their internet bill or whatever. It was a real grind, but it paid the bills. Anyway, I had been saving up for a long time to take a vacation to the mountains. I had always dreamed of going hiking and enjoying the fresh air. It was the perfect escape from the monotony of my life. My vacation plan was simple. I booked a cabin in the middle of nowhere, drove up there for a week, and hiked until my legs were sore. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just wanted to get away from it all. On my way there, I stopped for gas. It wasn't a busy gas station, just one of those old-fashioned ones with a single pump and a small store attached. As I was filling my tank, I saw this guy walking down the road. He looked kind of lost, kind of like he'd just wandered out of the woods or something. He was thin, pale, with long dark hair that looked like it hadn't been washed in, forever. He had a worn-out backpack slung over his shoulder and was carrying a walking stick. I didn't think much of it at first. It wouldn't have been so weird if I actually saw him walking in the woods, but he was walking on the road, and there was no trail nearby. That's what was weird about him. Anyway, he stopped right in front of my car. He didn't say anything. He just kind of stared at me, his eyes kind of fixed on mine and not blinking. It was unnerving, but I didn't want to make a scene, so I just finished filling up my tank and went inside the store to pay. He was standing right by the door, just watching me. I paid quickly and got out of there. I got back in my car and drove off, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He just stayed there watching. It was creepy. Then I thought to myself, it's not like you're the only person in the middle of nowhere. It's a gas station in the middle of nowhere. People walk around. It's normal. I got to the cabin without any problems. The drive was long and winding, but that was part of the appeal. I spent my first few days hiking and just relaxing. But I couldn't stop thinking about the guy at the gas station. He kept creeping into my thoughts. On the fourth day of my vacation, I decided to go for a longer hike. I packed my backpack with some water and snacks and headed out. It was a beautiful day. The sun was shining, and the air was crisp. I was really enjoying myself. Then, at some point, I saw him again. He was sitting on a rock by the side of the trail, watching me. It was like he had been following me, as if he was waiting for that moment. It was creepy, man. My stomach felt weird. It's a weird feeling, you know? I tried to convince myself that he was just another hiker. That's what the brain does when it feels threatened. It tries to downplay the feeling of danger. I tried not to make eye contact and kept walking, but it was hard. He kept staring at me. I don't know what it was, the way he just stared. I was uncomfortable. I walked past him quickly. I didn't want to stop or exchange words. Didn't even want to make him think I noticed he was following me. I kept moving, got to a fork in the trail, and decided to turn left. When I was about half an hour into my hike, my phone died. Oh God, my phone. I completely forgot to charge it before I left. So there I was, alone with no way to call for help. I still couldn't get the guy off my mind. I kept thinking about his creepy stare. He was just a lost hiker, I told myself. You're just being paranoid. Despite what I was telling myself, I knew my brain was telling me it was not being paranoid. Something was wrong. As I was walking back towards the cabin, I saw something that sent chills down my spine. The guy was standing by the side of the road, just like at the gas station. Same position, same clothes, just staring. He was standing there, right in front of the cabin, as if he had been waiting there for me, as if he knew I would take that specific route. I knew he was definitely not a hiker, not a harmless hiker who just happened to be in the middle of nowhere. I started to walk faster, but he didn't move. He just kept watching me. It was like he was waiting for something. There was something about him, something dark, something that made me want to run. I didn't even know if I was really scared. I was just uncomfortable. My brain was telling me it was not paranoia, but I didn't want to think about that. So I just moved forward, fast, got to the cabin and rushed inside. I locked the door, but it didn't feel safe. Nothing felt safe. I felt like he was watching me. Every time I moved around the cabin, I kept looking outside, just to make sure he was not there. It's like I couldn't shake off that feeling. I kept looking and looking, but he was nowhere to be seen. I tried to calm down, told myself that I was just tired. But I couldn't shake the feeling. That guy was so creepy. I felt like I was being watched. Even after I locked all the doors and windows, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was somehow still watching me. I thought I was safe, but that creepy feeling just wouldn't disappear. Later that evening, I made the decision to leave. I was scared. Nothing made me believe he was some harmless hiker. I packed my stuff and drove straight back. I never went back to that cabin. And I never saw the guy again. I know it's crazy, but to this day, I still get this creepy feeling just thinking about it all. It was the worst vacation I've ever had. And what's even weirder, a few weeks later, I was back at the call center, just doing my routine, when I received this call. It was from a woman. She was really angry. She shouted, "You are harassing me. I know you are stalking me." It was a rambling message, hard to understand. She said she knew I was stalking her and I had been watching her for a long time. She was freaking out. I was confused. I had never heard this woman's name before and had no idea who she was. I kept trying to explain, but she just kept shouting. I politely said thanks for calling and hung up. But it felt weird. Then my mind went back to the strange guy. He was watching me, I was sure. And now this woman, on the other side of the country, was calling saying I was watching her. It wasn't just the guy who was watching me, it was something else. Not something, someone else. Someone else was watching me and her, and I don't know what they wanted. My mind was completely blown. I thought it was just a coincidence. But it all felt so wrong, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I was just a call center worker, a normal guy, but how could someone be watching me, harassing someone, a stranger on the other side of the country? I tried to put it all behind me, tried to forget about the creepy guy and the phone call. But it was hard. I kept looking over my shoulder, just to make sure. There was this feeling, that something was wrong, something sinister. I even went to the police, but they were not very helpful. They said I was just being paranoid, that I should just try to forget about it. Nothing concrete, nothing solid, just a story of a weird dude in the woods and a crazy phone call. I did my best to forget about it all. But I never really feel safe, something changed inside me. I keep looking over my shoulders. I guess it's just a part of life now.